Welcome to Conversations with the Vice Provost. My name is Michael Dennin. I'm Vice Provost for Teaching and Learning, Dean of the Division of Undergraduate Education here at UC Irvine. These are conversations I have with my colleagues about issues important to UCI, but also important to the larger community, the state of California, the nation, and we even hope the world. With me today is Dean Stephen Barker from the Claire Trevor School of the Arts. Stephen, welcome.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's a great pleasure to be here. These are very important in terms of getting the word out. Always delighted to send the message out to the public.
Well, and I think, as we'll discover today, the arts are both extremely important and maybe not as visible yet as they could be, and we hope to increase that. Which brings us to our very first question. I think I've heard you say, and I think it's true, the arts are often the first place the community may be aware of or engage with UCI because of, by definition, the performances, the artwork, the experiences that are out there for the community. How do you really see that community engagement going forward? How is it increasing? What exciting things you kind of have planned for the school in this area of community engagement?
Well, it's an incredibly exciting place to be. In fact, it's more exciting now than I've ever seen it. I've been here for a long time, and I've never felt the kind of electricity in the air that I'm feeling right now. Now, admittedly, part of that is the result of things going on nationally and internationally. Right. But that's very important, too, because, in fact, one of the ways in which the Claire Trevor School of the Arts works is that, unlike any other unit on the campus, we are the public face of the university. Right. Now, you could say that athletics also does that, which is absolutely true. We have the added advantage that all of our presentations are linked to both undergraduate and graduate academic departments and areas of study, so that not only do we interface with the public in terms of entertainment, presentations, and productions, but all of those interfaces with the public on and off campus are based upon the idea both of entertainment and also of engagement. We want people to leave all of our presentations, whether they're in an art gallery, on a concert stage, in a theater, to leave thinking.
Right.
Both entertained and, oh, what was that about? What was that about? So that they'll potentially come back to us. I'm happy to entertain any questions that anybody has, and in fact, so are our presenters who do talkbacks, who do presentations on campus of their work, and of course also do so in the classroom.
Now, let's talk maybe a little bit about those talkbacks and such. Is that something that is also unique from art coming out of a university, perhaps? I mean, I know I've been to presentations out in the public, and occasionally there's a special one where you get to talk to the actors or whatever, but it definitely seems rarer. I assume our faculty are excited by that part as well. That's one of the reasons they're at a university. How does that play out for the faculty in the school, those talkback experiences?
The talkback experiences are not uncommon out in the non-university world. If there's a play generally, doesn't happen so much in the dance world, and less so, I would say, in the music world. Very common in the art world, art in terms of visual art, and also, well, visual art both literally interface and also video art, et cetera, et cetera. Tremendous amount of the artwork that we do is actually digital. So I bring up that distinction between the face-to-face experience that is physical and the face-to-face experience that's digital, that's metaphysical, if you like. And so all of those interfaces are opportunities for us to produce a kind of arc of learning, a kind of longer-term relationship between the immediacy of performance, which is its great strength, and the thought process, the thoughtful process of ruminating, of considering, of discussing, of getting feedback, of having discourse like the one we're having about the ways in which ideas are presenting themselves in the things that we do. For example, the drama department this season is a themed season, so that the 6 main performances, plays that the drama faculty and students are presenting to the campus are all surrounding, like stars in a constellation, surrounding the theme of them, exclamation point. Because it was realized, obviously, that one of the main themes going on in American and global culture at the moment is the whole discussion about the the relationship to the so-called other, and to othering, and to the idea of strangeness, of foreignness, of fear of the other. And so, because the drama department wants to engage in a very relevant way with the world, the campus and the world, all of the plays that are being presented are very edgy confrontations of various ways of exploring the idea of how otherness is produced and what its effects are. And obviously this asks not only for an amazing teaching experience in the classroom, but also engagement with audiences, both before and after performances.
So for the people watching who aren't familiar, and I have to admit I'm not even, when we have our drama performances, when we have our music, how many of them are also tied to a class, that undergraduate experience, versus kind of a standalone performance that the faculty are putting together for the performance sake? I mean, that may be hard to answer. It may not be a typical answer.
Very easy to answer because it's a very simple answer. That is to say, in the 30 weeks of the academic year at UCI, the Claire Trevor School of the Arts produces almost 300 public events.
Okay.
Every one of those events, from a violin presentation of a graduating senior, or thesis production as it were, all the way up to major drama, dance, music productions at the Irvine Barclay Theater. Every one of those nearly 300 productions is intimately associated with an undergraduate class.
Oh, awesome.
Every single one of them.
Now, we've also got something going on, and I know it's kind of broader than the arts, but Illuminations on campus is kind of new, trying to tie students and bring them into an experience of arts and humanities in the broader campus. And I know one of the things it's tried, because I've been involved in that, so it's led to a great collaboration I have with one of your faculty, Jane Page, around drama and the sciences, and having directors come and visit science labs and make works of art. Besides Illuminations, or maybe comment on that a little bit, how are those collaborations occurring across with the other departments as we move to engage the community as well, perhaps?
It's a great question. Illuminations was the first initiative that Chancellor Gilman created when he came to campus a couple of years ago to show his commitment to the arts and culture. It's a campus-wide initiative of which the Claire Trevor School of the Arts is a part. That is to say, it is not a School of the Arts program. It is a chancellor's initiative. And as a result, the director, the on-campus and off-campus director of the initiative, Illuminations, Julia Lupton, who is actually a humanities professor in the English department, but who's a wonderful polymath and works across the campus, not only with incredible energy to produce just dozens and dozens of fabulous interactions. But in addition to that, the Illuminations also works off campus with a dozen of the local arts presenting organizations as far away as the Bowers Museum, South Coast Rep, etc., to make sure that the undergraduate population of UCI students has the opportunity, should they choose, to experience top-level arts presentations both on campus, and this is where you've been involved, and off campus, where the leaders of these dozen institutions have absolutely positively committed themselves to having groups of students come to their events. By invitation, a busload will go to, let's say, to South Coast to see a play. And what happens on those occasions is that on the ride to the place, a presentation is given about what they're going to see. And in almost every case, the majority of the students who go to those events have never been to an event like that before. It's just amazing how closeted our undergraduate students are with regard to public presentations of the arts. They simply, in contemporary culture, haven't had much experience to do that. It's all on a little or even tiny screen. It's not face-to-face, and so this opportunity is really unique. Now, Jane Page, the head of the directing program in the Claire Trevor School of the Arts, has worked with you and others to make interventions around the campus. Shaken Shakespeare, where all of a sudden an actor will walk up to you and begin citing Shakespeare at you, wondering what to do.
That happened, if you recall, in the Chancellor's Council.
In the Chancellor's Council, that's right. And so what Illuminations has done is to operate both on a standard performance level and also a kind of guerrilla theater level to bring the whole notion of the way in which the arts are relevant.
So let's talk a little more about relevance. I'm going to do an interesting segue here. So one of my favorite things is having discovered the Shakespeare in the summer in the theater that we build here on campus, which I don't know how many people know about. And I've had an interesting kind of occurrence. I live vicariously through my children, and my oldest had an interesting course where it was a philosophy course, but they ended up studying 3 of Shakespeare's plays around the Roman Empire in its rise and fall, closing with Antony and Cleopatra. But it was fascinating to watch her make the connections between these Shakespeare plays she was reading and what's happening in the national conversation now. And I think that is something, to me, that's absolutely critical. We've had a lot of conversations in the last few months. For people who watch this, they'll watch it probably in late spring. We're filming it in the middle of the winter. A lot may happen and change, but the university's role and education's role in helping us be democratic citizens in a democracy. So I didn't mean that by a political party. I meant that, in terms of the, great meaning of the democracy we live in and how we engage with each other as citizens. And the arts seems to be critical to that. It's an ever-changing landscape. As you mentioned, many of our students have only maybe experienced art through YouTube or through their phone. How do you see that evolving, playing out? Where is that maybe now with the school, with artists in general?
It's probably the most important question we face. It has to do with relevance. The arts often has the reputation of being what Chancellor Peltison used to call those singing and dancing people. And he meant it in a kind of friendly but dripping with, frankly, a kind of patronizing, distancing effect. He didn't know he was doing it. Wonderful guy. But we are not the singing and dancing people. The arts are both the interface with the public, that is to say, relevant to the experience beyond what I call the antisocial media. And on the other hand, constantly engaged in the whole notion of how we are relevant through engaging the minds as well as the emotions of the people who work with it. So that, for example, one of the most amazing, magical aspects of what the Claire Trevor School of the Arts does is the New Swan Shakespeare Festival, which takes place over 8 weeks in the summertime. Something that was invented really out of the dream of some members of the drama faculty a number of years ago who just thought, we really ought to replicate what the original Globe Theatre and the Swan Theatre and the number of the theatres on the South Bank of London had to be on the South Bank because theatre was against the law in the City of London because it was considered to be too subversive, which of course it was. And so as a result, what happened then and what is happening now is to make a kind of intervention on campus. The New Swan Shakespeare Festival plays in the New Swan Shakespeare Theatre, which is a steel and wood construction made up of 14 separate pieces that are bolted together and stored over in the School of the Arts. Big flatbed truck comes in June, brings them over to the plaza between the Commons and the library, sets it up, and for 8 weeks we have this absolutely magical open-air theater in which 2 Shakespeare plays are presented every summer in repertory. But associated with these Shakespeare plays are talks before performances. Every Saturday night, a faculty member or a dean, I do it, comes and talks about what the audience is going to see, prepares them for certain aspects of what they're going to be seeing. Obviously, we see it in advance, and present something to look for, something to be aware of what's going on. Could be political, could be the result of some way in which the characters fit together, but always to enhance the experience of engagement and relevance. And so we're just delighted that this theater has been an enormous success. It's tiny. So if you have any interest in coming to the New Swan Shakespeare Festival, get on the website and get tickets. The theater is 170 seats, very small, experience. Very intimate, but it'll allow you to see Shakespeare, drama in general, in a way I guarantee you've never seen it before.
And I think that's something that if you haven't done it, I find it's an amazing experience. To be right up there, close to the actors, really seeing what they're doing and experiencing in a way that doesn't happen when you're removed from them. It's an amazing experience. And I know, one of the challenges I think we face as a nation going forward, it's a theme you hear over and over, is having difficult dialogues. We seem to have gotten stuck and unable to communicate. And I find, art, one of its great strengths is its ability to explore human experience through very different ways, different medium, but also to maybe sidestep some of the communication problems by communicating through interesting medium that we're not used to. How do you see that kind of playing out in our school here, and what are some of the exciting new areas maybe we're exploring? You mentioned, I think earlier, digital is a big thing for us, but are there other things that you might want to comment on?
Well, the main relevance of the arts consists of the fact that all of the arts are fundamentally and even radically collaborative and dialogic.
Right.
No art form exists except to be shared with others. It's just what the beast is.
Yeah.
And as a result, the idea of the craggy genius, the Emily Dickinson figure producing poetry that then goes into a trunk, nobody ever sees it. How many craggy geniuses are there out there that we haven't discovered? And the answer is none.
Right.
Because in the art world, if you're not discovered, you're not an artist.
Right.
Art means exchange. It means interaction. And in fact, at some level, it also should mean, this is our deep belief in the School of the Arts, it should mean, and I mean this in the most positive and also the most dynamic of ways, it should be provocative.
Right.
It should provoke thought. It should provoke reaction, both to, wow, look at those costumes, wow, that performance was fabulous, but also, wow, that really made me think. And so as a result, one of the things I've done over the many years I've been here is to give presentations on what I call the citizen artist,
right,
which at the undergraduate level is the way in which we frame the experience of our hundreds of undergraduate students. That is to say, they are not artists first. They're citizens of the polity first. And so preparation, or even you could say training, for a meaningful life in any culture has to do with some understanding of the way in which that culture operates.
Right.
That means psychologically, that means sociologically, philosophically, psychologically, et cetera, et cetera. And so as a result, our training at the undergraduate level focuses on that idea of building the citizenry. And not incidentally, training great artists.
Right.
But the point is to make sure that our students understand that their training, their preparation, their exploration of the media in which they're working as artists is all predicated on, is all built on the groundwork of becoming engaged and meaningful, collaborative, and sometimes even confrontational citizens in a world in which that kind of discourse, although the discourse can get very energetic, let's say, even heated, that's totally appropriate. That's what democracy is about. And so the exchanges that we have in the School of the Arts are all about that relationship between presentation and engagement.
Awesome. You mentioned this, and so we'll segue into this sort of last topic, undergraduates. We are a research university, but we're also a public university. And one of our greatest missions is to serve the undergraduates. Obviously, I'm a little biased as our vice provost for teaching and learning and the dean of undergraduate education. But in the School of Arts, I think it's useful for you to maybe comment, because people may not be as familiar first with the research aspect of it, but also the teaching aspect, because part of it is the training the actual artists, but to what degree also is the School of Arts teaching students to understand and appreciate and evaluate the arts themselves? Those students who are not, the painters, the dancers, the directors, the actors themselves, but want to learn about the arts, want to learn how to engage with it more fully and understand it better, particularly as you mentioned, since so many of our undergraduates have not had that deep experience with the art growing up.
That's right.
So there was maybe two questions in there, and go either way, and I'll tease out the second.
Well, one of the ways in which we try and engage in the way in which you're bringing it up, Michael, is that all four of our departments, art, dance, drama, and music, have very large GE courses, general education courses, which are, of course, both selfishly oriented to making sure that our physics and chemistry and bioscience students actually know that there's a School of the Arts at UCI, but also see a little bit of what we do at both the level of presentation and also of thoughtful scholarly research. So all of our GE courses, all of our in-house, as it were, courses are predicated on the relationship between learning a skill, a set of skills, and honing through talent our skills, but also learning to be better and better communicators of and with the ideas that we are sharing with the public. So that in the 4 departments of the school, 22 buildings in the Claire Trevor School of the Arts, every one of our spaces is a research laboratory into that phrase you used a little while ago, the nature of the human experience. And what that means is that all of our confrontations, our face-to-face interactions with the public are aimed at exploring the inner life of the people who are confronting us, who are sharing sometimes a passive, sometimes a little more active dialogue with us as audience members, as viewers of an art exhibition, etc. So that idea of research at the undergraduate level means inner research, but also the research that goes into understanding how best to portray the exchanges between human beings, communicative research. And it's a very complicated, very sophisticated, but also very basic set of exchanges, understanding what it means to evoke certain emotions in an audience. The first major play that the drama department presented this year was a play about a lynching. But the lynching was of a white man in the South. He was lynched because he was Jewish. It's a true story called Parade, and it's a musical, but it's a musical that engages an audience in a way that most of our audience was completely unaware of as a possibility for a musical. But I can't tell you the number of responses that I received, that the drama department received, saying, this is exactly the kind of top-level engagement that allows us to think about the most fundamental issues at work in culture today, but that also allowed us to come away from the performance thinking, that was fabulous. It was incredibly, meaningfully, deeply, beautifully done. So that combination, again, of presentation and engagement.
Now, one of the things this gives me hope for, is people periodically comment that we're moving into an era with online and digital and all of this, and the university won't be relevant anymore. And you kept mentioning relevance. And one of the things that struck me is, I can't imagine, there must have been many, many times in the last couple hundred years where someone has declared the end of live theater.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, between everything that got invented at various stages.
First time it happened, I think, was about 400 BC.
Exactly. And yet, thank goodness we still have live theater, as we've discussed. And I'm sure all of the art forms, as another art form comes along, people question the relevance of the prior one. And I think what's exciting to me is that range of experience the Claire Trevor School of the Arts brings to our campus, brings to our students, but also the hope that as these other modes of learning do come along, and I think the digital will be important, that sort of face-to-face, that human interaction that we have at the university, that deep engagement with each other, I think will continue to be extremely relevant going into the future. So discussing the arts and its relevance gives me hope that we will stay relevant as an entire university, Stephen. I'm very excited for the future, and I really look forward to future interactions and all that we do together and those partnerships between the undergraduate, the graduate students, and then the faculty in the arts, and even my own personal bias, the physics and the drama, the physics and the arts, because there's a great partnership there.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you all for watching. This has been Conversations with the Vice Provost, and join us for our next one. Thanks for watching. This is the time where you get to be part of the conversation. Comment below. You know the drill. You know how to do that. Subscribe, follow us, look for us on all our social media, and stay part of the conversations. Thank you.